Hi, Fireside Chat. So this is D37 Fireside Chat, soon to be 217 Fireside Chats. But today I have the ultimate pleasure. Okay, first of all, understand I was born in 1971, and this person joined Toastmasters the same year, and she broke barriers. Her name is Miss Lee. I am so happy to meet her. I met her last week, and now I get to meet her virtually and see her beautiful face and introduce her to all of you. So, Miss Lee, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Introduce myself. Hi, my name is Lee Beattie, and I'm a past international director for Toastmasters International. But more than that, and what should be important to you is the little teeny pin that's up here. It's called the membership pin. And I get more pleasure out of seeing people grow. And I think that's why I've stayed with this organization for 54 years.
Did you guys hear that? 54 years. So I'm 54 years old, about to be 55, and she's been a Toastmaster for the same amount of time. To me, that is blowing. But Lee, can you tell us how you became a Toastmaster? Because sometimes we walk in rooms and we're not accepted right away or we're not allowed. And tell us how you broke barriers and became a Toastmaster.
It was on a Saturday morning at 7:30, my one day off. And I needed to go to a Toastmasters meeting, so I found a meeting at the Horns Motor Lodge, 7:30 in the morning. I don't know about you, but I don't have my eyes open at 7:30 anymore. I just kind of stagger around in the dark. But I got there and I walked into the room and there were 20 men in that room. And I think they were checking to see if my slip had slipped or if my nylons were on straight, because back then we had a seam that went up the back of your leg and it had to be straight. I slunked into the first chair that I could possibly find. I pushed my breakfast around the plate. They called on me for a table topic. I don't know what I said, but it must have been terrible because they decided that they could adopt me as a Toastmaster. But it came with some things. Number one, I couldn't vote. Well, I didn't come to do that anyway. Number two, I could not hold an office. I didn't come to do that anyway. But I did come to learn parliamentary procedure. And so they didn't take my money except for the club dues, which I paid. And then I could do all of my speeches and things that I needed to do to learn. That was my important factor. And what a difference that journey has taken me in my personality, in the way that I see things, my judgment, my friends, probably a little bit of my humor. But that's what I have learned in the 54 years. But more than that, I had a friend called E.J. Burgay, and she served on the board of directors. And she was the one that encouraged me to run for the board because she needed some help, she said. And she'd be there every step of the way. Now, E.J. could not see her fingers in front of her face. She was totally blind.
Hmm.
But EJ taught me a lot of things. Number one, when you say things, sometimes if you cannot see, you are dependent upon the inflection that the person is giving with their voice. So there are other ways of finding out how to see people without
Can
actually
I
being
stop you
able.
right there, Miss Lee? Can I stop you right there? Because a lot of people may not know this, but I actually got introduced. Well, not really introduced. I've heard about Toastmasters for years and years and years, but never made time for myself. I was always doing something for someone else. And during the pandemic, I got on Clubhouse, and there was a Toastmasters room, and I got called on stage by um, Linda Marie Miller, and she heard my voice. She didn't know if I really looked like my picture. She didn't know anything about me, but she heard my voice and she said, "You have a voice that people need to hear and you have a message that people need to hear." So sometimes, I think our seeing is believing type thing, it kind of handicaps us. And so it was interesting that you said that because it resonated exactly with me. And I'm sure it'll resonate with a lot of people in the audience where they think they have to look a certain way or be a certain person to be a Toastmaster. And that's just not so. A Toastmaster is about using your voice, the inflection in your voice, the spirit from your bottom of your gut, and the message that comes out of it to let everybody else hear what you have to say. And I'm gonna let you continue.
Where did I drop off? Oh,
So you were telling us about. You said number one was she told you about your voice, about your voice, and then the inflection in your voice, and then you were going to number two.
well, she was very amazing to me because she could be in a room and there would be three conversations going on in the room with three different groups. And she could tell you who said what and in what group they belonged after it was over with. Absolutely amazing to me because I have trouble just keeping up with one sometimes when there's background noise. Do you?
Sometimes I do. I'm one of those people who I don't know if it's I want to be involved in everything that's around me, or I hear something and I'm like, oh, okay, but they need to focus here. So I understand that completely. So before you were a Toastmaster, can you tell me who Lee was?
Who was Lee before I became a Toastmaster? Well, I belonged to a couple of organizations. My husband was in the U.S. Marine Corps. So I was involved in what they called staff wives. And we did things in the community to help people there. And so I was involved in doing things to help people there in that community. Well, it seems that the U.S. Marine Corps was teaching at that time a thing called diversification to all of their members of the U.S. Marine Corps. But they weren't teaching anything to the wives who were in the community actually working. And so I called the commanding officer of the base and asked him, could I sit in on that class? And he said, that's a
Awesome.
funny thing. You should ask me today because he said, I just had a principal that called and wanted to do the same thing. And he said, I think we could make arrangements for that. So I
That
sat in on the class and I have my little certificate upstairs in my never, never room where my Toastmaster stuff is. And everybody has one of those. You walk in, you can't walk back out. You know, you may be trapped in there for life, but it's a good place to be because there's all kinds of things up there. So that's my story there with who I was. I used to use a lot of words for fillers like ain't. You know that word, ain't?
I do know that word.
I kind of thought you would because your background is similar to mine. We both came from the right from the place
And
to
that was
do
something
that
else.
from.
Yeah, I found out in talking to her pregame that she actually lived in Detroit, and that is my hometown. And I am so like, it's like kindred spirits. It's like it's a lot. It's a lot we have in common. But I that was one thing that was like, wow. So let's see. She became a Toastmaster the year I was born. She was in Detroit, Michigan. And we're going to find out some more little nuggets about Miss Lee. So, Miss Lee, can you tell me if you had to talk to a new Toastmaster or someone who was considering Toastmasters, because this is something that I go through on a daily basis, just had it Wednesday, where I was trying to explain somebody the benefits of being a Toastmaster and why they should join. What would you tell them?
Would you repeat that question one more time
What
for
would you
me?
tell someone who was considering trying out Toastmasters?
I would tell them number one, come to a meeting. Find one that is liking to your time frame because we always run into problems with work and kids and all this other stuff. But you know, that's the one thing that you can do to help yourself. So it's a personal thing with you. It's like taking a bath in the morning when you get up, making sure you smell nice, right? And so that's kind of like Toastmasters. You'd like to be heard, but you want to make sure they get the right message. And a lot of times things stumble us up like the word ain't every other sentence or every other word. And so that's a filler. We use it so we can take time to think. And it's okay to have pregnant pauses in your speech. Just stop. Because the next word you say is going to be the one that they remember. Join Toastmasters. Go
The
try it
next
out.
word will be the one they remember. That is a nugget right there. I love that. And so that is something that a lot of people don't understand. They think this is an organization for the 20 men that you walked in the room for. And it's actually a very diversified organization. It's been around for 100 plus years. There are those in the audience who don't know that. And it's worldwide. So there are clubs in India, Africa, Asia, South America, and all over the United States. There, why it's called the international organization, because we are truly international. And what, as a Toastmaster, where has Toastmasters taken you?
Toastmasters is very diversified. You don't think of it being that way, but it really is because the program that we have in Toastmasters, if you start to follow it, you are given more and more responsibilities. One of those responsibilities might be putting on a district conference or a regional conference or even an international conference for who knows how many people. It can be anywhere from about 50, 75 on up. 2000s when I got to be an international director and I was asking for the vote before that happened. I walked out onto the stage and the lectern came about here because I'm a rather short person. And I thought I am dead in the water if I stand behind this lectern because they're not going to know what I look
Not
like
gonna
to
see
vote
you.
for me. And it's important for you to shake hands and put on a personality when you're talking to someone else, and especially if you're asking them for a vote and they don't know you from Adam.
Adam, I get it.
Right.
That's how I
So
felt when I had to ask
I
Sandy
picked up
a
the
question.
microphone. I picked up the microphone and I walked to the front of the stage, which I was not trained to do. And I thought, now that I've taken their time to walk to the center of the stage, the message better be important. And what I said was, we are an international organization and we must remain so. And I thought I was going to get a standing ovation. And I almost did. They clapped rather loudly, and I went on with my program that I had planned to say to them that day. I think fortunately, I did the right thing because I got 75% of the vote.
Awesome. And sometimes we do have to step out. And what I'm saying, Sandy. And if you guys hear me say Sandy, it's because Sandy connected me with Miss Lee. So she's heavily on my mind and heavily appreciated. Her name is Sandy Campbell. She is very instrumental in this interview and with our Toastmasters 217 district that is coming up as of July. So, Lee, can you tell me? So, I just had a conversation with a new Toastmaster yesterday, and I was giving her some tips on how to get herself ready for her icebreaker speech. And as you know, when you're doing your icebreaker speech, it's all about you, and you're petrified because this is your first introduction to Toastmasters. And if anybody doesn't know, we have a thing called pathways, and everybody in each pathway, there are six. In each pathway, everybody has to do an icebreaker speech. And that icebreaker speech is your introduction to your club on who you are. And like I would do one on who is Andrea, and I would use something that's very close to my heart. And it would probably, now reflecting, I would probably do more something like about my faith and how my faith has progressed me through life, but that is something that you would do. You would take something from your life and make it into a speech. And what would you give? What would be the one word of advice that you would give a new Toastmaster about to give their icebreaker speech?
Practice, practice, practice. That's number one. Number two, some of us do not feel comfortable about talking about ourselves. We'd much rather talk about somebody else if you haven't noticed. Society's kind of that way. But it's an introduction of yourself to let them know what your interests are, where you came from, perhaps, because mentioning to you that I was from Detroit, for example, we talked the last time about, I don't know, half an hour or something about how we
About
came up
Detroit.
in Detroit, where we lived, etc. So you learn more about me by asking questions and getting answers to them. And that's what the audience is looking for. They would like to have their questions answered. And I think that's important.
Mm.
So the fact that my husband spent 22 years and 6 months in the U.S. Marine Corps, the fact that we lived at Camp of June for about 14 of that years, the fact that my husband spoke some Japanese when he came back from 2 tours, and so I have a smattering of that, but I'm rather ignorant, let's put it that way, on how much Spanish I speak. I speak. It's very limited, but I can get by with enough to say hello and goodbye on that. And do you have some water? So I think I have some survival traits there. But that's another story because I belong to Girl Scouts. And in this Wake County, I was in charge of training at one point for all of the new leaders that came in to teach them knife and axe care. And you would be
Mm.
absolutely surprised what they showed up wearing. High heel shoes, 4.5 inches, little teeny mini skirts that came up to you almost where, and they were going to bend over and chop
And
wood
chop wood.
and start a fire. So they learned that dressing appropriately for the occasion would probably be in order in this case. But I did
I
did do that
understand.
for a number of years,
And
and
I'm one of those
and I
people who think about what I'm putting on. To do this interview, I was like, okay, what am I going to put on? And I wanted to make sure that the focus was on obviously my background and you instead of on me. So I put on something simple. And when I'm competing, I do that as well. I try to wear something simple that doesn't distract the audience from what I'm saying. And that when I first competed, my mom was like, "Why are you so worried about what you're wearing?" I said, "I don't want to distract them from what I'm saying by having on something that's too busy." Or and at the time we were doing a lot virtually. So anything you put on, if it had any kind of pattern on it, your face is going to go straight to that pattern instead of to someone's mouth. And so I learned very quickly to keep it simple. And Toastmasters teaches you that a lot with a lot of the pathways. They teach you how to keep it simple. And you mentioned something about making sure that your message is being heard correctly. What is the message that you have for our audience today?
know that's one of the things that we do in Toastmasters. I think very well, and that is we have an evaluator. And after we finish our speech, the evaluator tells us, "Oh, you did magnificently well on this, 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 and this." I had a guy one time that gave me one, and I had a great experience. Everything he said was great, 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 great. And I felt cheated at the end of it because he didn't give me the one properly placed lower than my waistline in the back to tell me how I was going to grow. And that's what's important. You listen for that one thing that you can do better. It's not a mountain, it's only one thing. It's
And I
achievable.
I love that because evaluation is like one of the best things in Toastmasters. So if you've never been to a Toastmasters meeting, I advise you to go, first of all. And second of all, when we have our Toastmasters meeting, there are several parts and it's very structured, which is what I love. You know what's going to happen, and we give you the agenda, and everybody's on the same page. But there's a section called evaluation. So if I did a speech and Lee was my evaluator, she would tell me the things I did well, the things I can improve on, and the things that would make my speech dynamic. And those last two, the things you do well, you probably already knew what you did well when you sat down, right? But those last two are those things where you grow. And that's what Toastmasters is about. If you're looking to grow, if you're looking to stay stagnant, don't come to Toastmasters. If you're looking to be invisible and nobody sees you, don't come to Toastmasters because that's not what we're about. We're about letting everybody being seen and heard. So we come to grow. And that's why it says that's where leaders are made. And that's because we grow in leadership and in our public speaking in Toastmasters. So if you're looking for a place to grow and get that feedback, not a critique, because I know everybody's been in an environment where people want to tell you what you did wrong. Girl, that hair looks bad, that dress looks bad, you got a spot right there. You need to pull those pants down. No, you shouldn't have wore that. No, you shouldn't have done that. Yeah, no, that's not what we're telling you. We're telling you things that will help your speech do better. Make you get your word out better. So say you want to tell someone about your book, you're an author, and when you talk, you feel like someone's not hearing what you're talking about. Like you're telling them. So for instance, I'm gonna use my own book. So my first books are about dreaming. And if I go on and talk about Lily and not talk about that Lily was dreaming, you don't understand what the book is about. But that's what the Toastmasters would be about. They would tell me, well, you didn't tell us really what the book was about, but you did a good job of telling us about Lily. And that's what she's saying. So if you just sat there and told me I told you a good thing about Lily, but you didn't tell me that I need to tell you that the book is about Lily dreaming, then I don't grow. The message doesn't get focused. And it was kind of a waste. It kind of feels like you got cheated. So that's what she's talking about. So that is what she's saying. Come and get your evaluations done correctly. And evaluators out there, that's not the time to be nice. We need you to be real. If I always say when I see someone in a bad outfit, I say they don't have no friends, you know, and they don't have no friends. And so that they don't have no friends message is what Toastmasters is about. I have friends at Toastmasters. So Lee, who was very, other than the young lady you mentioned earlier, who was very instrumental in making Lee the leader she is today?
Every member in my Toastmasters group, every member at the district and regional level, and the fact that international is still here internationally so that we can take advantage of being a member. I always tell people the important pin on this is not my DTM, although that was a lot of work. I was darn tired Toastmaster time I got through with that. But this little pin up here, which is called a membership pin, that's the most important pin that you have because it gets you in the door and it gets you on the platter, and when you get through with it, you can play a nice, happy song.
Awesome. And I just want to talk about one more thing. Toastmasters is about serving. The people that really make Toastmasters, we're all volunteers. None of us get paid to be a leader. Nobody pays you to be the treasurer. I've been the treasurer. I've been a VP. I've been everything but I've done everything but presidency. And they're trying to get me to do that. But that
I lost her
nobody
someplace there.
pays nobody pays me to do that. They
No, but you
nobody
get an
pays me.
education
Yeah.
every time you do something. Let me explain that. We have a thing called speechcraft. It's a thing that you do for 5 to 6 weeks or whatever. And it's a program that's put on so that you can start a new club. For example, I've started 7 new clubs. One of those was out at RTP. The one that I'm in now, which is Wake Forest Toastmasters, I didn't start it, but I was instrumental in helping it get started. So mentoring, that's an important factor. Yeah, the other thing is that I did speechcraft. Speechcraft is for kids that are under 18 years of age, and it's done in the schools normally, and it's to teach people who are younger how to present themselves. And again, it's about a 5 to 6 week program. I did 7 of those, and 7 youth leaderships, and 7 speechcrafts, and well, actually, yeah, and then 7 new clubs that I was instrumental with. A couple of those things had to be done the year that I got my DTM. I had to have 4 new members, 1 new club, a speechcraft, and a youth leadership before I could get my DTM.
And that's why she was a darn tired Toastmaster. Okay.
That's right. On the move all the time. And then, of course, when you start running for offices, you have to go visit other clubs. And sometimes they meet early in the morning, and you're making a trip up to somewhere called Black Mountain in North Carolina, or down to the coast from here. And you may leave here at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning to get wherever you're going. And I learned one thing that was not important now, but it was back then. Sometimes I learned how to change my clothes in a telephone booth
She
without
was like
exposing
Superman.
anything that you shouldn't see. Okay. Well, that's been taken away because we no longer have telephone booths out there. We have iPads. And there's not quite the same when you're changing clothes in a car with everybody going by and you're trying to get your britches off and get a skirt on or whatever, or the opposite way around.
Can show
And
you. I have the art to that. My mom taught me that. I was telling her about that. She was talking about the telephone booth, and I was talking about getting dressed in the car because we were going from one service to another and had to change uniforms. So I understand. I
all
understand where
kinds
you're coming
of things
from.
you learn.
Life skills.
Life
Life skills
skills.
for sure.
That was good,
But I
Sandy.
earned
Life
some money.
skills.
I earned some money for some other organizations too, American Heart, for example, and the American Cancer Society. And I also on the base because we had a backlog for doing testing of women. And it was like 3 or 4 weeks before you could get an appointment to go in and find out if you had cancer. That's
Mm.
just not satisfactory. So, with the help of the American Cancer Society and my background somewhat then in Toastmasters, we put on 2, 3 weeks it was that we had nurses, doctors, American Red Cross, you name it. We had them helping us. And we got that whittled down to where it was 2 weeks before you could get in. So that
And
was
see, that's
amazing to
that's
me.
that's something that people don't realize. Toastmasters is not we're not just worried about what's happening within Toastmasters, but we're worried about or not worried about, concerned about what's going on around us. So a lot of Toastmasters, you will see them running different organizations and doing different things out in the community to give back. And that's another great thing about being a Toastmaster. You get involved in a lot of different areas. And Lee, something else Lee had shared with me, and I wanted to bring that out today. Lee, tell us about your experience at Sears and Roebuck. So, if you don't know about Sears, I know recently we have lost Sears, but Sears was very, it was like Macy's back in the day before Macy's or Hudson's, what it was called before, where before that was even a thing, J.C. Penney's, Dillard's, before Belk, before all of those, it was Sears and Roebuck. Tell us about your time at Sears and Roebuck.
My time at Sears, I was hired into a department because they found out that I was fairly good in sales. That was an all male organization again because they didn't have women in doing what I was going to do. And I was expected to perform just like the men did in that department. And you know, I'm only 5'4". No, I was 5'4", 5'2.5", actually. I stretched it. I'm now 4'5". So I'm shrinking in some areas. However, I went into a place called Sears and they got me from the drapery department and put me in major appliances with all the men. So if the dishwasher had to be put out today on display, put it in this little doggy house, then I had to do that. If the refrigerator was a 25 cubic foot and it needed to be unboxed and deluxed and put on the floor, I had to do that. But I ended up being first or second most of the time with my duration at Sears. And what happened there was that it was an all male organization again. And I lasted until I was 85. And then I really was forced to retire because I got an illness. And I overstayed my stay for being out, which was something that I needed to do. And they said that I could come back again anytime and sign on. And I said, would I come back with the same things that I have now? 3 weeks vacation, for example. And they said, oh no, you would come back as a new employee. So I
Wow.
kind of thought better of the years that I spent with Sears, and I kind of felt better about my age limits and pushing those refrigerators around the floor. And I said, I think I'll just retire. So that's
And
what I
it
did.
was time. It was, I think you had put in your time. But this is the thing. Miss Lee is not just a Toastmaster. Miss Lee is a barrier breaker. Like she
I
just
didn't get that
she
last something happened.
oh,
Transmission.
I said you came in breaking barriers. You have stepped because you stepped in the door, you have allowed me to step in the door and Sandy step in the door. And because women like you open doors for us, we honor you as a Toastmaster, as a woman, and as a mother of the earth. We just honor you for that. And what is the last thing that you want to tell our audience today about Lee?
I had a doctor that hollers at me every single morning. He told me, you've got to move it, move it, move it. So in the morning, I get up, the alarm goes off. I manage to find the phone and turn it off. And then my body says, I don't want to. And I hear him hollering at me every morning, you've got to
Move it,
move
move
it,
it,
move
move
it,
it.
move it. So then I have my example for the day set out. You got to get out of this bed and move it, girl. So I roll over and I think just 5 more minutes. And I hear him say it again. And I get out of the bed, walk into the kitchen, still sleepy headed, bumping into things like all of us do that time of the morning before coffee. And I have to take a pill that morning that I have to wait 30 minutes before I can get my cup of coffee or my breakfast. And during that time, I go in and get on the phone and do things like my banking. And by the time I get that done, pretty much, I've got about 10 minutes to run into the coffee machine, which I set up the night before. Hit the little button on it, and I'm pouring coffee and nothing flat. Put a piece of toast in the toaster, put my egg that's been scrambled in the microwave oven, and within about 7 minutes, I can have my breakfast ready to eat. So thanks for Toastmasters for teaching me how to move it, move it, move it.
So you heard
And
it
my
from her,
doctor.
guys. It's time to get up and move. And any of you new Toastmasters who think, oh, I'm just going to sit here and I'm a coast, Lee just told you to get moving. Get moving. Go through your pathways. Do what you need to do. Go through life. Go out there. Go to places where they may say you're not welcome here and show them how you were meant to be there. And not just pull up a seat, but pull up a mic and start talking and making your voice be heard. Today we had the pleasure of talking to Lee Beattie and one of our oldest Toastmasters in our district. And we are just so overwhelmingly proud of the things that she's accomplished and the things and doors that she's opened for us to accomplish more. So I believe that greater things are coming from our new Toastmasters because we have to outdo her. And that's a lot of work, right? She's been the international director. She's been president. She started clubs. She did speechcraft. She was one of the first women in the club. So you got some work to do. It's some work for us to do. And that is one of the new things is that we're going to work together. We're going to build together. And today we got the pleasure to see how working together works for everyone. And this has been the District 37, soon to be 217 Fire Chats. And we are here to say, we're waiting for your voice.
Thank you, Toastmasters, for making a change in my life. It doesn't take away all the nervousness, but remember, that sends those good things out that make you push a little harder. So you just have to get those butterflies flying in the right direction. And if they're helping you, that's important.